Hello and welcome to Spicy's Hidden Worlds. This is the 4th episode of The Catch. I haven't been able to put the trap out much lately as I've had surgery on my foot, but as you can see here, one of the last nights I was able to trap on, it was an extremely busy night. As you can see, the rate of moths going in the trap is quite high and this continues for hours on end, so by the morning there is a lot of moths in the trap. If you notice here, I've been catching lots of elephant hawk moths. Nowhere near my record of 36 in one night, but 20 has been caught recently. Remember I said you could get lots of elephant hawk moths on one night? Well, this is nothing really. And 2 of them have flown off since I've had them on my hand. But yeah, they're very common really. I'm just waiting for them to all take off. Fly, my pretties. Fly away. Oh, it did. And you. Fly away. Leave my hand. Please. Please. Now onto a few more moths I've caught lately. This first moth, the Scarce Silver-lines, very nice looking moth, 19 to 23 millimeters, resident and local, one generation between late June and July. It's, as I said, very, very nice looking moth, with like a pastel green on the top and a slightly off-white underneath. Now the next moth, I haven't got a great video of this. This is the Festoon. Naturally, when it's sitting very comfortably, it'll lift its tail into the air, but unfortunately it was being very feisty when I had it, and I couldn't actually get it to do that before it flew off. One generation, early June to July. Forewing, 10 to 12 millimeters as resident. There are great fluctuations in the population density. Around here, this is the first one I've caught actually, thinking about it. I know someone else who traps moths locally and does catch a few of them. They are on the southern front of the island more so, but it was good to catch one. The next moth, the Small Magpie, it's a very nice looking moth. Now if you remember I was talking about macros and micros, macros being the bigger moths, micros being the smaller moths. This actually classes as a micro because it's a pyralid, which is a group of moths. Now with the other moths, when I give you a measurement, it's the forewing length, so it's the length of one wing, so the wingspan would be double what that number is. With pyralids they just do a wingspan, so with the wingspan of this being 33 to 35 millimeters. It's common and abundant. One generation, June to July. Okay, the next moth is another micro, the Cream-bordered Green Pea. Again, a very nice looking moth. There isn't that many green moths, this sort of green, but you do seem to catch them around the same time of year. As you can see, green on the top with these creamy white edges, hence its name. Its wingspan is 20 to 24 millimeters. It's resident and nationally scarce, so there isn't a lot of them, but I do catch quite a few. Over the course of a week or so, I find. It can be seen between May and September, but the peak is in June and July. Okay, the next moth is another pyralid, the Rusty Dot Pearl. Wingspan is 18 to 24 millimeters and can be seen between June and November, with a peak in August. It's a common immigrant. It's a very good sign of migration. As I've mentioned before, we have migrant moths which come from Europe, even as far away as North Africa. When there's lots of movement going on in moths, there's always a very large number of rusty dot pearls with them, so if you see quite a few of those on the trap, then you know you've got a good chance of something maybe rarer inside. The same can be said for diamondback moth, rush veneer, and a couple of other ones. Okay, the next moth, this is the first one again I've ever caught. In 6 years of trapping, I've only ever seen one other one on the island. It's a red-necked footman, forewing 15 to 18 millimeters, one generation, June to July. It's resident as a suspected immigrant. Now on the night that I got this, I got a couple of other immigrants. I'm going to assume that it was an immigrant. It's quite well distributed in the UK and sometimes quite abundant, but only locally. As I say, nice moth to see. And obviously gets its name from that red collar around its neck. Okay, the next moth is the Privet Hawk-moth. This is a fantastic moth. Now if you remember a little while back I said about I needed a big tub to put a moth in, and people were saying, I really want to see what moth goes in that. This is the moth I'm talking about. Okay, it might not look as big as you think I may have implied, but it has an 11 centimetre wingspan. And I like to give a moth somewhere to sit in which is wide enough for it to lift its wings fully out and maybe move them a bit without banging them around, because I like to keep them looking nice. So that's why that big box is used. As I say, the forewing is 41 to 55 millimeters, so a wingspan of around 11 centimeters. One generation between June and July, resident and a common moth. Obviously not seen very commonly because you need a moth trap really to see these things, but some people do find them and are always shocked by them because they're very large. And if you disturb them, they're very feisty and they'll show this bright pink coloration of the wings and the abdomen. which is obviously used to try and scare predators off, but obviously this wouldn't work for humans. Well, in fact, actually, it probably would for some humans. The only other possible moth in the UK which would be bigger than this is the death's head hawk moth, but this is like the holy grail of moths for moth trappers. They're very rare. They didn't used to be quite so rare, but they are very, very rare. But if you were to catch one, you would be extremely happy. They are massive, they are amazing looking, and they squeak. They're the only moth in the UK that can emit a noise. And after 6 or 7 years trapping, not a sniff. But one day it will happen, I have faith. Now I have a Facebook if you don't know, the link is in the description, and you can send pictures to me and I can identify them for you. But I am getting pictures from people in America and some other countries, and it's very difficult for me to identify things from other countries. I'll give you a family maybe, or I may even be able to work it out, but I don't know the species like I know the UK species. Every country has its own set of insects. They do overlap in places, but America, you really do have a totally different set of insects. So although they may look very similar to ours, they will be a different species. And it's not so easy for me to identify those for you, but I will do my best. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like and maybe consider going over to my Facebook and giving a like on that page. There's some very interesting things posted, and I also post some pictures on there sometimes. So I'll catch you next time, as it were. So in theory, you could see one of these beetles at any time of the year, but the main time you're going to see them is between April and September, with a peak in June.